Shalom Aleichem, and welcome back everyone as we are continuing in what's usually our Thursday night class, this week being a Wednesday night class, as we're going to look at the parasha and see some of the lessons that we can learn and then apply to our lives. So we'll start off with our first lesson, and it's going to be based on the Pasuk, Perek Het, Pasuk Yud Het. The Torah tells us about the travels of the Jewish people in the desert. And it says, Al pi Hashem yis'u b'nei Yisrael, v'al pi Hashem yahanu. Kol yemei asher yishkon hanan al mishkan yahanu. The Pasuk says that the people traveled by the mouth of Hashem, and the people rested and they settled also by the mouth of Hashem. All the time that the cloud was on the Mishkan, right? That's where it stood stationary. Then they camped there. When the cloud would and when the cloud would move, they would move. So Api Hashem Yahanu, Api Hashem Yisa'u, and it's mentioned twice in the Torah, Pasuk as well as Pasuk Chaf. If you think about it for a second, the Jews are already living in the desert, right? As hard as if you imagine what it means to live in a desert, what a desert is, right? Obviously, they had the clouds and they had man, but still, it's not like living in a house. And but the Jewish people could never really have felt settled, because at any moment the cloud can get up and start to move, and they can move. And in fact, that's the way it was. Sometimes they just settled in, right away to get back up. Sometimes they settled in and they would stay there for a very long time. So why did Hashem make it that when the Jewish people, He could have given them a schedule. Here's a schedule for the rest of the year. We're going to be traveling on this week, on that day, and that month. No. Pasuk says that Api Hashem Yis'u b'nei Yisrael, Api Hashem Yahanu, that they traveled by the mouth of Hashem, and they settled by Hashem as well. Why is it that way? Why did Hashem Dafka set it up? What did the Ribono Shel Olam want from the Jewish people by giving them such a lack of peace of mind?
They should not get comfortable.
They shouldn't get comfortable. But why did Hashem do that they shouldn't get comfortable? And you're right, we shouldn't get comfortable. But why? And the answer is the exact opposite. There is no more settling feeling. A person thinks he's calm, he's okay. That's not really considered calm and okay. The most settling feeling, the real form of peace of mind that a person can have, it's knowing that Hashem is taking care of us. When you know Hashem is guiding us, so okay, He's telling me to move, He's telling me to sit, He's telling me to sit, but Hashem knows what's best for me. Hashem knows when I have to move and I don't have to move, right? And if a person realizes that, the best possible place to be is in Hashem's hands, Api Hashem Yis'u b'nei Yisrael, Api Hashem Yahanu. That's what it means. It means that Hashem wanted to teach the Jewish people, it's not what you think is a peace of mind and being settled and having a schedule that you think is the right thing to do. No, the right place to be is in Hashem's hands, living by Hashem's will, because that is the exact place you're supposed to be, and that will bring you the most calm. My Rosh Hashiva, Rav Reisman, Shlita, would say, he says, I don't understand how people who don't believe in Hashem live their lives. Why? Because you look around and you see the news and you hear what happens, you think the world's in chaos. You think the world is disastrous. It's terrible. And the person who's atheistic, who's an atheist, doesn't believe in God, then there's no plan, you can't be settled. You can go crazy. But the opposite of a religious person. A religious person, on the other hand, he says, yes, a lot of things I don't understand, but it's all coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if it's all coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then it must be good. Then I'm just going to live my life and trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There was a Rebbe that was once taking a walk at night, and a policeman stopped him and said, what are you doing? It's so late at night. What are you up to? You must be up to no good. He says, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. So the policeman said, you're being fresh with me. He takes him. And he takes him to the police station. And as he's going there, the police say to him, why don't you just tell us where you're going? Maybe we'll let you go. And he says, And we say in the pasuk, we say in the berachot in the morning, Hamechim in Sa'adei Gaver, that Hashem puts the Pearson steps, puts where a person will go. You have to believe that Hashem is going to lead you in the right way. He says, and I'll prove to you that I didn't know where I was going, because here you're taking me to the police station, and that was the last thing I had in my mind. So obviously, I didn't know where I was going. There's in the 1960s, there was a show that was called Candid Camera. Candid Camera had a host by the name of Alan Font. And it's pretty much very simple what the show was. They had certain situations, and they had a hidden camera there, and they wanted to see how people reacted to that situation. So, for example, they had one where they had an escalator, right? You're supposed to take the escalator going up and then continue to go up, and they made one escalator going up and the other one going down, and now there's no place to go. So how people would react to that. Such and such things that they would do. Alan Font was famously known for this. He was the host for many years of the show. And on February 3rd, 1969, Alan Font got on a flight from Newark, right, in Jersey, to Miami. And he's on the flight, and all of a sudden, Cuban terrorists take over, they hijack the plane. Now, they were demanding passage to Cuba. But the people on the plane saw Alan Font. So instead of getting scared and going wild, they said it must be this is an episode of Candid Camera. And as such, if we're going to act wild and start screaming, they're going to catch us on camera and they're going to put it for national TV. We don't want to go on national TV screaming and yelling. So they all were calm, looking at him and laughing. Meanwhile, Alan Font was trying to tell them, I'm not joking, this is not a Candid Camera, this is a serious situation. But they wouldn't believe him. They wouldn't believe him. And they said, no, this is a Candid Camera episode and you're trying to get us to go wild. And the people didn't believe him until they actually saw the plane land in Cuba. Until then, they were not believing that this was a real thing. Now, how do you understand this? A person can be on the plane and he gets a hijack, and the person can think, it's nothing, it's Alan Font, he's making an episode. I think this idea applies to what we're saying over here. What we're trying to say is, we should never get hijacked, and nothing bad should really happen to us. But we understand that whatever we're going through, it's Hashem putting us in it. So it's Al Pi Hashem. So the Hashem causing us to be there and doing this. The person goes with this emunah, with this bitachon, with this sense that the best place to be is where Hashem wants me to be. That is the lesson that the Jews were taught in the Midbar. And this is a lesson that we have to take with us. Everything that happened in the Midbar, it wasn't just for the generation of the Midbar. It was a lesson that we're learning. The Torah is teaching us for us to take it for us with life. That, yes, if something bad happens, something bad or something nervous, a person needs to get nervous. In fact, Rav Pinkus says, if we understand that everything comes from Hashem, why does Hashem make painful or sorrow times, sad times? For example, a woman gets pregnant. Mazel tov. At the beginning of a pregnancy, a lot of women experience morning sickness. Comes to the birthing, and they go through a lot of pain, right? A lot of life cycles have happiness, pain, have a lot of different things going on at the same time. So, but why do people go through upsetness and all these things and they cry? The Pinkus says that everything comes from Hashem, but Hashem gives us these painful times as an opportunity to dive into Hashem, because when a person's really at a painful point, his prayer is a lot more sincere, more feelings. And he says anytime a person is in pain or crying, he should use that pain and that feeling to dive into Hashem to help us have a better life for the children, for him, for everyone. That means to be able to use everything that's going on in life is from Hashem. If you ever come on a bump on the road and it's a painful or it's sad or it's something that makes you feel bad, you have to use that emotion to reach out to Hashem through that emotion so in the future it would be better. This is with a concept of understanding Al Pi Hashem, that everything comes from Hashem. We'll move on to our second lesson from this week's parasha. And we're looking at, famously, this parasha has unfortunately a couple of sins that were going on. One of them was being the complaints about the mun. Right? People didn't want to eat any more manna. They wanted something else, saying every day, 3 times a day, or I think they used to eat in the olden days 2 times a day. Every day, the same thing over and over again. Right? To just think in your mind for a second. Imagine your wife or your mother is giving you the same food every day. You're going to say, I don't want to eat. What to take it back? Person naturally wants other things. Right? I saw they brought down Rabbeinu Meshulam was one of the doctors for one of these Arab kings. And the Arab king once came and told him and said, I don't understand, you Jews are so ungrateful. God gave you manna, and because you wanted garlic and cucumbers and these other things, you complained. Every day you can taste like anything and you complain. So Rabbeinu Meshulam, the next day, he was his doctor. He goes to the chef that prepares the king's food and tells him, no garlic, no cucumbers for the king. Now the chef thought that the doctor's telling him for the king's health. So the next day, the king gets his meal, no garlic flavor, no cucumbers, and the king starts screaming. Ooh, wow. He says, what do you mean your doctor came and told me? So they call Rabbeinu Meshulam, and Rabbeinu Meshulam says, yeah, here, you didn't have garlic for 1 day, and you were complaining. So he said, it is something. But again, we're talking about a very holy and special nation. Now, when describing the manna, the delivery of it, in Sefer Bamidbar here in this pasuk, it says when the dew descended, when the tal descended, at night, the manna would descend upon it. Right? So when you have the dew come down, the manna would come. In Sefer Shemot it says the people went out to collect it. So it says that either it fell, then it says people went to collect it, and then in another place in the pasuk before, it says that the people will go outside and stroll and gather it. So you have 3 Lashonot. You have it that it fell, you had the yatzah, you have to go out and get it, and you had the people have to stroll and gather it. So which one was it?
All 3.
We also find, that's true, we also find that somewhere in the Torah, through the Psukim, it says the bread was ready to eat. Then it says it was cakes that needed to be baked. And then it says grind it, pound it, and cook with it. So which one was it? So like Rabbi Yosef here said to us, Rabbi Yosef told us, it's all 3. Tzadikim receive their manna, that just falls down right in front of their door, at their doorstep, ready to go. It also didn't require any cooking. You're ready to eat it right away. The Benoni, an average Jew, was forced to go out and collect it, and he had to bake it. And the Risha'im were the ones who had to go on a long stroll to find it, and they had to work on it, pound it, grind it, and then cook it. Nothing came for them simple. The Zohar HaKadosh explains, who were these Risha'im? They were actually observant Jews, people who kept Torah mitzvot. Their failing was in their level of emunah, in belief in Hashem's ability to provide for their physical needs. Before the Baal Shem Tov became known as the father of Hasidut, he was very, 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 very poor. One Thursday, it's coming Erev Shabbat, he realizes he has nothing to eat for Shabbat. He decides he's going to go on a fundraising. He's going to go get some money. So the Baal Shem Tov walks into the city where he was at, and he walks over, someone pointed where a rich man lives. He walked over to the rich man's house, knocked on the door, and walked away. And started walking down the street. The rich man comes to the door, opens it, he sees no one there, he sees one man walking down the street, starts running after him, he says, Rabbi, did you knock on my door? And the Baal Shem says, I did. So he says, what was it? He said, oh, I needed some money. So he says, so why didn't you stay at the door? Why you run away? So the Baal Shem Tov said, listen, a person has to do his hishtaldus. He has to do his job. And Hashem takes care of everything else. I felt that my job was to knock on the door. After that, my job was done. Where it comes from, that's up to Hashem. I did my job. I did my hishtaldus. I knocked on the door, and that's it. And the man said, how much money you need? And he gave him the money that he needed for Shabbat. This is an emunah, a level of emunah. And the very important from this lesson where the Baal Shem Tov answered, he said that my hishtadlus was to knock on the door. Where Hashem sends the money from, that's His business. Because what happens is a lot of times we think that whatever we're going to do is what's going to cause us to get money, but that's not entirely true. Our job is just to do something. Where the money actually comes from, that's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All right? Because sometimes you'll try to invest in something, do something here, but really it comes from somewhere else. The money. That's the Baal Shem Tov over there. Harav Shalom Shvadron, Zecher Tzadik Baruch explains what happens, how people get confused. That they think that their panasah comes through their own hands, their own money, their own thoughts. Rav Shalom Shadron tells over the mashal about a man named Chaim. Chaim was a traffic officer. He helped with the traffic in Yerushalayim. In Jerusalem was a very busy street. And every morning he would come there early in the morning before the traffic started to get busy. And he would be standing there and he would be directing the traffic this way and that way and this way. But he wasn't all alone. He had some help. Who was his help? His help was a traffic light that was on top. So you had the traffic light, the red, yellow, and green, and the traffic light was helping him. One day his wife asked him and said to him, Chaim, I don't understand you. There's a traffic light there. What do you have to do there? And he says to his wife, wife, you don't understand. Traffic light's a traffic light. I have to do my part. I also have to go and direct traffic. Without me, it's not going to be. So, he takes his job very seriously, day in, day out. And one day, in the morning, he wakes up and he's not feeling well. His heart is hurting him. They rush him to the hospital and they say he's having a heart attack. And they tell him he has to calm down, he has to be relaxed, otherwise it's going to get worse. And he says, I can't, I'm in a lot of stress. Why? They say. He says, because I'm supposed to be at that corner right now directing traffic, and I'm not there. Who knows what's going to go on? So the people try to calm him. Until one person says to him, Chaim, don't you know that there's a traffic light there? There's a traffic light there. It's going to direct the traffic. And his wife looks at him and says to this guy, he says, what are you talking about? You think my husband would go and direct traffic for 20 years if there was only a traffic light? The traffic light's a traffic light. But you need him also there. And Rav Shalom Shadron explains this is what people do. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was up there directing the traffic, telling everything where to go. And the person thinks that he's also directing the traffic. He's not directing anything. It's all coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But a person thinks he's directing. He's doing something, he's happening. And this is a very wrong thought. The person has to remember, he has a job, he has to do something. But at the same time, everything comes from Hashem. What you're doing may not correlate to your success. You're doing because you have to do. What Hashem does is what Hashem does. Therefore, we cannot stress more the importance of tefillah, of prayer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything that we need. Everything and anything. A person should never ever think, I'm good at this, or I can get this alone. I don't need Hashem. So, our job is to always ask for Hashem to help us. Rav Shimshon Pinkus, there was a young couple that lived near him, and they have not been blessed with a child. They went to doctor after doctor, and now the doctors were saying there's no more choice, no more chance. It's not going to happen. And this young man came to Rav Pinkus and he was crying. He's crying and saying, I don't know what to do. They're saying we have no choice. There's no option. We're never going to have a child. And Rav Pinkus said to him, are you available tonight at 11 p.m.? The man said, yes, I have nothing to do. He So he says, I'm picking you up from your house, and we're going to go somewhere. Pinchas picks him up at 11 o'clock, and they drive to a certain, in the southern part of Eretz Yisrael, and where there's like just, forests and deserts. And he takes him, and he drives on a dirt road. He stops the car and tells the young man, get out. Spend the next half hour diving to Hashem, and I'll pick you up. And he leaves him. A half hour passes by, and Shimshon returns. Shimshon returns, and the young man's looking at him and says, "Why did you leave me alone?" Shimshon looked at his eyes and said, "No, you can't go home yet. You have to daven to Hashem. You're right now in the middle of nowhere. It's just you and God. Just daven to Him, beg to Him, talk to Him, cry to Him. But ask Him to bless you with the child. The doctors can't help you. No one can help you. Only Hashem." And Shimshon Pinchas drove away. Again, the man is left all alone. Shimshon Pinchas comes back again another half hour, looks at him, sees he's crying, and says, "Not enough." And he leaves him again. Until another half hour later, he comes back. He looks at this man who's crying his mind out. There's tears all over. His eyes are swollen, his face, tear streaked. And Rav Shimshon looks at him and says, Now I think we can go back. Takes him back in the car and drives him home. They didn't speak nothing on the way home. He dropped him off. And within that year, exactly within a year, the couple was blessed with a child. The fruit of a broken father's prayers. He knew that no one but Hashem could help him. And he davened like he really believed it. Not just davening because we daven, but he davened because he really believed it. He had discovered true bitachon. This is what it means to truly believe in Hashem, to truly daven to Hashem, for Hashem to help us. We'll move on to our third lesson of this week's parasha. And I think this is a very important lesson as well. There are a couple of lessons here. And both of them are going to come from Rav Pam. I made a bracha before. The Pasuk tells us, Moshe was the most humblest of people that were ever on the face of the earth. Sirat Yisharim, Perek Chavbet, chapter 22, is devoted to the topic of anova, of humility. The first thing to know, humility doesn't mean that I think I'm a nobody. That's not humility. That's not true humility. That's just foolish. Everybody is something. Everybody's supposed to believe in himself that he can do something. Everybody is a something. Yet, what does it mean to be humble? As great as a person is, he has to realize that he may not be using his full talents and capabilities. The greater a person is, the more humble he has to be. Why? He should say to himself, look at my potential. Look what I've been doing up until now. But maybe I'm only doing 75% of what I'm supposed to be doing. Or 75% of my capabilities. Maybe there's a lot more than I can do. And therefore, he's humble from the fact that he's not fulfilling his potential. The Chavetz Chaim was once heard talking to himself, and he said, Yisrael Meir, look how much Hashem has given you. He gave you the opportunity to write the Sefer Chavetz Chaim, Shmirat HaLashon, Ahavat Chesed, Mishnah Berurah. He has done so much for you. He gave you a large yeshiva, hundreds of students. And what have you been doing for him? Right? That's the way the Chavetz Chaim looked at it. Not that he was doing stuff, but rather Hashem gave it to him to do. What is he doing for Hashem? He was humbled by the realization of his achievements and realizing that more was expected of him. There are people who have been blessed with good health, good wealth. They have the ability to give a lot of tzedakah, but now they start giving a lot of tzedakah and they feel gava. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. They should consider themselves custodians of Hashem and hope that they have given enough tzedakah. Not to think that who am I and that I'm giving. People have a lot of chachma. They're very wise. They might think that they're superior. But they too must realize that those talents come with obligation. And they have to be worried, are they fulfilling their full obligation with their wisdom? Not enough to think, oh, I'm smarter than the other guy. The question is, am I using my chokhmah to my full capability? If a person thinks of it that way, and he realizes that it all comes from Hashem, then he won't have arrogance, but rather he will be a humble person. The Mesilas Yesharim says that one of the character traits of a true humble person, it's called Sevilat Ha'el Banot, which means someone who has the ability to bear insults. That someone says something to him, he doesn't go wild, he takes it to heart. Moshe Rabbeinu, in this week's parasha, his brother and sister Miriam and Aharon criticize him for separating from his wife Tzipporah. And they say, was it only to Moshe that Hashem spoke? Did he not speak to us as well? They were also Nevi'im, and they didn't stop living with their spouse. So Hashem appeared to them and explained why Moshe was correct. The Moshe's Nevu'ah was not like their Nevu'ah. Moshe Rabbeinu separated from Tzipporah because it was necessary. All the Nevi'im, Aharon, Miriam, they had it in their dream, they had it some other way, but Moshe's prophecy was unique. He talked to Hashem face to face at any time. Moshe could have responded angrily to Miriam and Aharon. Yet Moshe Rabbeinu didn't answer at all. Sivilat El Bonot. To bear insults. Now, before we move on to this understanding of bearing insults and its greatness, we have to really understand what Aharon said when he realized his mistake. For we've been foolish and we have sinned. What does it mean be foolish? Or Chaim explains. Aharon acknowledged his foolishness, that he was comparing himself to Moshe. We, unfortunately, a lot of people, they compare themselves to the Rabbanim. They're going to fight with the Rabbanim. The rabbi said this, I'm going to say the opposite. We have rabbis who are Rabbanim, but they're fighting with Gedolei Hadar. You cannot fight with Gedolei Hadar. It's Moshe and Aharon complaining, Aharon and Miriam comparing about Moshe. It's foolish. There are levels. There are greater people. Our Gedolei Hadar all day, 24/7, Kula b'Torah, all the time learning Torah, 24/7. Then you have some rabbi who learns half the day, half the time, half the this, half of that. How can he come and argue with them? He's no. If he has something he doesn't understand, he wants him to explain it. Call it, come on, let him go and ask them. But to go against, when Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, the state of Israel, as we have today, which should live and flourish and come better and closer and stronger to the true Yehadut, when they were founding the nation, the state of Israel, there was a lot of arguments about the army and how to set it up, and with the girls, with the yeshiva boys, or whatever it was. And the Brisker Rabbi and the Chazon Ish had shitot, had opinions that they had, and there were some younger rabbis at that time. They were arguing with them, and the reason they were arguing, they said, they're rabbis, and we're also rabbis. We can also argue. That itself is foolishness. The Chazon Ish is the Chazon Ish. Brisker Rabbi is a Brisker Rabbi. You may not agree with everything they say and do, and you may have another derech that also may be legitimate if it's halachically correct, right? But there's many drachim in Yahadut, as long as they're correct, halachically correct, you're allowed to believe in those and do those. But to argue and say that we're equals, that's not possible. Chachamim, Gedolim can argue with themselves. They're all on a very high level. But for us little people, we have to take this lesson as well. What Aharon and Miriam did was foolish, as Aharon says, because they didn't realize the difference between them and Moshe. So we always have to look who we're talking to and what are we saying. The Chafetz Chaim, he would say, woe is to a person like me who nobody insults me. We already know if a person bears insults, it gives him kapara. It also makes him Hashem's friend. Hashem helps him out with what he needs. The Chafetz Chaim says, nobody ever is mean to me. No one ever tells me stuff because I'm an old man and they have kavod for me. They don't say anything. But it's also possible that the Chafetz Chaim wouldn't realize if someone would tell him something bad, that he wouldn't take it as an insult because of his refined character traits. The Chafetz Chaim would hear something and not even know that someone was insulting him. There's a story that's told. The Chafetz Chaim took a wagon driver. He hired him to take him from one place to the other place. And the wagon driver started to cry. So Chafetz Chaim, I don't know, the other day I bought a new horse. And now I'm using a horse from the Gemach that the town people helped me take. I bought a new horse. I thought it was going to last me a long time. 3 days after I bought it, it died. Rabbi, why would such things happen to me? So the Chafetz Chaim told him, Hashem is a tzaddik in everything he does. The Chafetz Chaim says, sometimes people steal. Wagon drivers sometimes change the price in the middle of they stop in the middle of the forest and they say, we're not going forward until you pay me some more. Sometimes they let their horses eat from something that doesn't belong to them. And Hashem has a way of making everything equal at the end. It's possible that's why your horse died. So now the wagon driver says, but Rebbe, I heard that last year someone stole your pelts. Someone stole your coat. Your overcoat that you had, you went to Vilna and someone stole it. Why would you lose your coat? The chutzpah to ask the Chafetz Chaim why someone would steal your coat. The Chafetz Chaim answered him. The Chafetz Chaim, you know that I sell books. I try my best to make sure that every sefer is bound properly and is clear. It's legible, contains all the pages. But sometimes mistakes happen, and a damaged sefer gets out. Sometimes someone gets that sefer, and someone doesn't want to complain, or he can't complain, can't find me, and he keeps that sefer. And so it might be that happened, and that's why my coat got stolen. I don't know, but that's a possibility. I think one of the major lessons from this story is the Chafetz Chaim's midot. Someone just told him, why would someone steal your coat? And the Chafetz Chaim didn't say, he didn't say, how can you ask such a question? Because the Chafetz Chaim trained himself to be an Amen. Now I'm going to say something that this, I believe, is the difference between a mature and an immature person. In midot. When it comes to character traits. Someone hears someone say something bad about him. Or someone tells him something bad. How does he respond? There's two ways to respond. Well, first, there's really three ways to respond. The first way is the most immature of all ways. Someone says something bad to you, and you say something bad back to him. Not really helpful, it's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to get you in problems. The second one is to say to myself, okay, this guy is a crazy guy, let him say whatever he wants. Kind of bounce it off. I don't care what he says, anyway, he's worthless. It's not worth it to listen to him. But then it's the third way, the third response. And this is where the person who's the most mature in his midot that says, maybe what they're saying is true. Maybe there's something to this criticism. Maybe there's something here. Maybe I should pay attention. Maybe I should listen to it. Maybe there's something there I can become better. Yeah, sometimes crazy people do scream and yell. But you also have to know that everything comes under Hashem's hashgacha. Everything comes from Hashem. So sometimes, if someone's telling you something and you may not like it, and it's coming from someone who screams all the time, but still maybe Hashem wants you to hear that, for you to get some sort of message from it. And that's the most mature way of it all. It's good for me to acknowledge these remarks because by doing so, I'll become a better person, Rav Pam says. A person who can bear insults and criticism, he's able to take it positively, will spare himself much grief and heartache. And if Pam said this is so important in the husband and wife relationship. Why? The husband and wife relationship, Shalom Bayit, sometimes the wife says something to help her husband. If he's going to be overcritical every time she says something, he's going to be always upset. She's going to be upset when he says something. Humility is the number one factor in a successful and happy marriage, Rav Pam says. It's the cornerstone of every good midah, is to be able to be humble, not to think that you're the best. Know who you are, know your quality, know that you have what to offer, but at the same time, maybe there's something that other people have to offer. In conclusion, let us quote the words of Mesilat Yesharim about a humble person. Mesilat Yesharim says, his company is very pleasant, he gives pleasure to his fellow man, he is never aroused to anger or controversy, he does everything quietly and calmly. Happy is the one who has been privileged to attain this trait of humility. And so with this, 3 lessons to review. The first lesson was that we're always in the hand of Hashem. Just calm down, relax, believe Hashem is running the world, you have nothing to worry. We had the second lesson of Emunah. Hashem is running the world, therefore your parnasah comes from Hashem. Trust Hashem. You have to do your part, but Hashem is ultimately what happens. And therefore, prayer to Hashem is the most important. And our third lesson was humility, which means to believe that you are someone, and you're someone special, and you have a lot to offer. But at the same time, to bear insults, not to get upset at people, and to maybe even take those insults to help yourself become a greater person. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu help us with these lessons to apply them in our lives, and may we see the Geula Shlema of Amen. Shabbat Shalom.